Um, all right, welcome everybody. My name's Nate. I go by SunshineNate here online, and I like to share you live views through a telescope. And I am joined today with John Reed from Learn to Stargaze. And tell everybody about yourself, John.
Yeah, so I'm astronomer John Reed, and I primarily write books about astronomy, stargazing guidebooks to help you after you have your telescope. Well, what do you look at? So a lot of people have that issue. Well, I solve that issue. So that's what I do, and I started doing that on YouTube too a few years ago. So here we are.
There we are. And today's topic is, what telescope should you buy? I am here with a handful of the smart telescopes I've been using this past year, and I believe John has some telescopes on hand there. But I think both of our channels, one of the top questions we always get is, what telescope should I buy? And that's what this live is about. So feel free to talk, ask questions. What telescope should you get? What are you interested in? And we can feature a few of the telescopes that, and our experiences with it, and maybe help lead you down the path of astronomy, because it's probably the coolest hobby
Yeah.
on Earth.
Well,
Hey,
as people join in, let's just talk holistically about the hobby because that really is the determinant of what you're looking for in a telescope. Because really, there's two hobbies here, and then there's an intersection where they meet. And so, if you have the Venn diagram, so the two circles, you have stargazing, and that's where you have no electronics, and then you have astrophotography, which is anything that involves a camera to take pictures of the sky. And typically, people think, oh, I'm going to get a telescope and maybe I'll put a camera up. But they're actually quite separate hobbies altogether. And the almost the only place they intersect, except for a little bit of digiscoping, looking at the moon, like what SunshineNate does, is with the smart telescope. And so, if you want to take epic photos of galaxies and nebula, and you want to see cool things with your eyes like Saturn and the moon close up, like with stargazing, then you're actually looking at two separate telescopes. And let's say your budget's fairly high, like $700, then you can do one of each. And a lot of people, a lot of astronomers these days, they actually do that. They, when they go out to stargaze, they bring
yeah,
two telescopes. They bring one for stargazing to get that wow of seeing, like it's like meditative. You become one with nature, you're seeing something with your own eyes. And then they have a smart telescope that's running all night, taking images that then they can go share um, on social media. And so it's so cool to now that with the smart telescope, it's getting easier and easier to bridge those two worlds together. And then, Nate's got the Unistellar there, which completely combines them into one unit. And so that's
yeah.
been cool technology as well.
Yes. Okay. Welcome in, everybody. Unexpected traveler. Hello. No, we're not in a meeting. I'm not in a meeting. I was just letting John explain that this live stream is about what telescope you should get. So ask questions about telescopes. Um, telescopes. Here we go from Traveler. Telescopes for being in the city. Again, observer versus astrophotography both have unique challenges in city lights. And now John describes cities very well. It's not like downtown where the skyscrapers are. It's like, all the well lit areas into the suburbs, all of that stuff around the city. If you have a lot of light, there are a lot of things you can still see. Just what, a week or so ago, John and I were in northern Hollywood with a lot of lights in an RV park and captured the Orion Nebula on this little dwarf mini smart telescope, and it came through
Yeah,
fantastic. But
it was
that
as
was,
if we were in dark
yeah,
skies.
and
It
that
was there
was
was yeah.
astrophotography. That wasn't visual observing, you know. So depending on what you want to do, any telescope is going to be able to perform to some level with um, light pollution in your skies.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
certain targets,
yeah,
it doesn't matter, right? So like the moon, people are like, "Oh, I need to go out to the country so I can see Saturn." It's like, "No. Saturn is there in the city. You'll see it, bright yellowish star, point a telescope at it. You'll bring it in. Same with the moon, but then even beyond that, double stars, and this we're talking about not Smart telescope's just a regular telescope, that you picked up wherever. We'll see Saturn's rings, the moon, double stars like Albireo, winter Albireo, which is one of my favorite things to see at this time of the year. And even the Orion Nebula from the city is not that bad. So it's when you get to those more advanced targets, like if you're trying to complete what's called the Messier list, the most famous list of 100 stargazing targets, about half of those you're going to have to get out of town. But
Right.
yeah,
Um, oh, this is a great question for John from Dan Cook. Hi, Dan. It's great to see you in here. Good to see you. Hi, Amy. Why do you recommend avoiding EQ mounts for beginners, John?
yeah.
Beginners.
So there's a couple reasons. One,
Here's
they
a
typically are.
smart
Yeah.
telescope
So
version of
yeah.
that,
So
so I
what
can
is an
describe it.
EQ mount?
Yeah.
Do you want me to just dive into that? I don't have one with me.
You,
I don't think.
here, I can kind of describe it. Here's your smart telescope that does its pan and tilt right here. Okay. So as it tracks something across the night sky, it's the bottom of your frame of your lens right here is going to stay level with the ground. But the sky doesn't do that. Okay. The sky is going to slowly turn across as it moves across the sky. Those objects are turning like this. So what happens is that image gets cropped in and in and in. And so to avoid that, you take and you can tilt your telescope to the degree on Earth you are, so that now it is tracking that ecliptic plane or whatever across the sky. And now you don't have that shrinkage, and you get more coherent data in frame without it needing to be cropped in. That's my very dumbed down generic
Yeah. So
terminology
it's
for it.
tracking this celestial sphere.
Yeah, the celestial sphere. There we go.
Yeah.
So now
which is
you're
just a
you're doing
term
that.
which is just a term because the earth is rotating about an axis. So it's as if the sky rotates above your head. And so that you point the telescope one axis at the North Pole, and then it only has to move along one axis to keep things in the frame and keep them from spinning within the frame. That's called field rotation. Yeah. But
I think
why aren't they
avoiding
good for
that as a
beginners?
beginner, for beginners, that can be a little overwhelming and confusing.
Yeah. So one of the bigger issues though is that there's almost probably 90% of the EQ mounts for beginners are the power seekers, and they always arrive broken from the factory. None of them are not broken. It's just the way it is. I've never seen one that's fixed. And the issue is that people get them and they don't realize they're broken. And
Hey
again,
Dan,
this
can
is
you share
this
this to Discord, by the way, if you don't
yeah,
mind, Dan?
so this is the power seeker mount. They're just what happens is you have these gears and these teeth, and if you just take one out of the box, the gears and teeth aren't touching. You literally need to get your ratchet set out and tighten everything
Oh,
up.
really?
And people just don't know to do that, and they're turning the knob and then the telescope doesn't turn with it. So I've never seen one that arrives functional. So that's one of the issues. The other thing with just EQ mounts is if you're just stargazing, it's unnecessary. Like it's an unnecessary complexity if you're just stargazing. So the reason that you have an equatorial mount is if you're looking at something like Saturn, you sit there and if you're watching it for over 2 minutes, you slowly turn one knob and it keeps the planet centered. If you don't have an equatorially mounted telescope, you would turn one knob and maybe another knob slightly to keep it centered if you're watching it for a long period of time. But the optimal beginner telescope is just a Newtonian, where I point at this one, like this one, right? Like a Dobsonian. And this one, as you're tracking, you just push it like this. And that's how you track an object. Like it couldn't be simpler. You just hold it
Yeah.
and you follow the object. And so there's no alignment necessary. There's no complex learning curve or anything. You just point it at the bright thing that you want to make bigger, and that's it.
What telescope should you get on a tight budget? I want to take pictures of planets, galaxies, etc. It's all super interesting to me. And this comes back to the what is that pie chart? Two circles. Um,
Yeah.
you got galaxies, etc., and then you have planets. So planets is called planetary, and then deep sky is galaxies, etc. So they do overlap a little bit on a lot of things, but if you're going with planets specifically, that's really going to dictate a different telescope than going deep sky stuff specifically. Um, but there are some crossovers and there are some great ones on a tight budget. And John has made videos on this, so I'm going to let him take over on some of the tight budget beginner
Yeah.
telescopes to see a little bit, probably of that crossover area. You know,
Yeah, so we did a telescope called Why, a video called Why You Need Two Telescopes. And if you're on a budget, for example, where's like the dwarf mini, right? So your best budget here for seeing galaxies and nebulas, there is no, or the Sea Star too. The Sea Star is $50 cheaper. For $400, there is no better way to get photos of galaxies and nebula than something like this, right? Like that's it.
yeah.
You're not going to be able to match this quality, the quality of the images, with a regular setup. You know, like um, a Maxutov here.
And they do come with solar filters, and this can do the moon and sun, but this is not going to do planets. But this is going to do some
Right.
good deep sky stuff and the moon and sun because it has a solar filter that goes right on it.
Yeah. So you're not going to do better than this. If you try to do nebula photos on a budget with a big telescope, you're not going to match this quality until you're spending probably $3,000 to $4,000. So you have to spend 10 times the amount to get the same photos as you do with this, as you do with a traditional telescope. It's just a 10x multiplier right now. It's just the way it is. And if you want planets, so planets scale with aperture, and so the quality of the planets increases the wider the more light you can collect, and the wider your aperture. So aperture determines the amount of detail that a telescope sees, and it also gives you access to higher magnifications visually. And so a Maksutov telescope like this, or a Cassegrain telescope, these are super high focal length telescopes. So that's the focal length of this, the length the light travels before it comes into focus is really long. It's like 1.5 meters or like 5 feet, even though this telescope is only about 18 inches long. And so the light bounces back and forth a few times inside. And that's what gives you this long focal length in a small package that allows you to see planets in good detail. But again, it's the aperture, this distance, that allows you to see planets in detail. Smart telescopes don't have that. They don't have a big aperture, and so you just get the detail. You're limited here by the laws of physics. I believe it's called the Rayleigh criterion, is the physical law dictated by the size of a photon, by the wavelength of a photon. You can't cheat physics and get photos that are highly detailed of something that has a small angular size with a small aperture.
Um,
Nebula are huge. Like the Orion Nebula is probably like 30 or 40 Saturns across, right?
yep.
In the sky. In
We've
reality,
got
it's probably a billion. But
all right, John. We've got a batch of questions that piled up during that.
all right, let's
Um,
take them.
So 8-inch Dobsonian, yes, you can see Jupiter's bands. I do it all the time with my 8-inch Dobsonian. Me personally, my favorite telescope of all time is an 8-inch Dobsonian. No electronics, just an eyepiece,
Yeah.
the Dob, me, and the night. It's my favorite. And your favorite telescope is going to be the one that you use. Sometimes that can be binoculars, especially for kids. Uh,
Well, kids aren't going to be able to use binoculars, but my kids definitely can't. But small telescopes, yeah.
um, I've had my kids have some binoculars that they were a little smaller, but they worked really well for them to just they were like kids size.
Yeah.
But they loved it because they don't have the patience for a telescope at a certain age range down there. They just want to, you know, and then they'll be uninterested for 1 minute, then they pick it back up and look at something else. Um, and a telescope takes a little more patience, but then as they develop more of a passion and patience with it, That's where you start looking at a beginner telescope. Um,
Yeah, so there's only one. Um, when my kids were young, I have one over here. There's only one telescope they were able to use,
hey, Toasty,
and that was this guy.
spotting telescope. Oh, those are nice. Yeah, those
It's
are
upside
great
down.
little guys.
So this was
It,
the Z100 Celestron. Now they take this was actually made by Celestron, I think, but the brand was Zumo, and so now they're the Celestron Moon Mission. So they're about $170 now on Celestron's website. But it was also the Orion Sky Scanner. When Orion had it, they sold for $129. And the important thing with this one is the secondary mirror is fairly small, so you have a small obstruction, and the mirror at the back is parabolic. And that's important because a lot of companies are using spherical mirrors at 114 and 127 millimeters of aperture, and that's not good. Those mirrors are very poor quality, and the image is not great. So, but this one has a parabolic mirror, and the image was wonderful. And the kids also found these really easy to use. You just use your sight; it's got a little light in it, and you point it at what you want to make bigger. And great views of the Orion Nebula with this, double stars, the moon, the whole bit. So for kids,
8-year-old uses a spotting scope. My favorite scope is my 10-inch Dobsonian. How do they know real colors of the planets? Is it a guess? Your focal ratio is important. Could you zoom magnifier on your iPad? Some great footage. And then, what's your channel called? This is Learn to Stargaze. John Reed is Learn to Stargaze, and my channel is SunshineNate. Um,
yeah,
but
Zumo
the
Z10. I have the Z12 in my truck. It hasn't left my truck in about a year. We even
now
had to
some
shove the Christmas tree in beside it there.
something that Unistellar has that I don't really see anybody else doing is kind of a hybrid between that visual experience that, like, my favorite thing is just sitting down with a dog, me in the night sky. So they have this smart telescope called their Odyssey Pro, and it has an eyepiece on it, but it's like a smart telescope that does deep sky objects. And there's a screen in there that when you look in, you get that you get that connection with the instrument looking at the night sky, but you're looking at deep sky images. And that's the Odyssey Pro right here. And this one, I believe, runs around $4,500. So it's for a more serious use, but if you're out at star parties and stuff and you're doing things, it's a really cool unit to watch people come up and just like check it out. It's kind of that hybrid between deep sky imaging and that experience of looking through a telescope to see these things. Because a lot of these very distant galaxies and nebula, they're so dim that through traditional telescopes, even really good ones, they look great, but they don't pop like you see in the astrophotography images because you need to do long exposures and stack them and stuff. And this will give you like a live feel and view of it. And then also here I have a Unistel or Vaonis Vespera 2 X edition, and this one is great for some premium optics on deep sky imaging. However, one of the limitations on this guy is you need to do the processing yourself afterwards, but the data is really clean. And I don't know what the price of this one is. I'm
I
guessing,
think they're 1700.
yeah, they're like 1700 for the Vespera 2. This is the X edition. It's a transparent model, but I think they're white, right? They're
Yeah, the normal ones
no,
are white. Then
yeah,
see through for an extra $300 or $400.
yeah. And then
Yeah,
some popular smart telescopes by Dwarf Lab right now. They have their Dwarf Mini, or Dwarf 3, which has been a big success. That does some great deep sky imaging, but they just came out with their smallest smart telescope. So, like, what I have behind me is like a nice array of smart telescopes. And John is sitting there with some like traditional telescopes and
yeah.
finding what is right for you. A lot of people come to me with, I want to see planets and deep sky stuff. And the truth is, then you need two different telescopes. In my opinion, I would go with something like a Dobsonian to see the planets and just sit there with it, not taking photographs or anything. That tends to be what I share you guys the most of on my videos. Is just I put my phone up to my dog. That's what I love so much. But then if I'm doing deep sky stuff, I'm I'm not a super complicated person with it. I do have some full blown astrophotography setups, but I'm usually like quick and dirty with stuff
Yeah.
like this behind me. So I go with my Dobsonian or this, and then I also have the Celestron 8SC Nexstar like imaging, large 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain for imaging on a tracker, and then I have a nice 72 millimeter Astrotech refractor
Yeah.
for
Yeah. I think I
for
have one in my
imaging.
closet. I can walk through the process of, okay, what if you do want to take a photo with a traditional telescope? I have the basic gear, I think, just in the back of my closet. Because again, I've been using smart telescopes so much more often here. So let me see if I can pull one out of the closet.
Yeah, 8-inch Dobsonians you can pick up for a few $100s. Now they are heavy and they're hard to haul around, but I will always recommend if you want that wow factor looking at Saturn and stuff at home, something like a Dob is really cool to have. There's a fancy
Yes. So
astrophotography
this
rig. Yeah.
this is a basic astrophotography rig. So this is your basic 100 millimeter. Um, rig. And so what you have here is a triplet apochromatic refractor. And that means you have three pieces of glass up here that make up your main lens. And that brings every color of light into focus at the same focal length. And so if you try to do astrophotography with a low budget scope, that's not going to happen. And like you can plug a nice camera into a cheap scope, but your stars will be all, as you take a long exposure, your stars will be all funky, they'll be all
Yeah.
bloated because of the different colors of light are coming in to focus at different places. And so that's typically what you have a big scope for. Plus, you want it to be all hardy. You don't want it to flex or bend or anything like that. And then you also need what's called a field flattener here because the focal plane that a lens creates is not flat, it's curved.
So
So
your
you
edges
need,
get yeah.
yeah, so you need another piece of glass down here called a flattener, and it also includes a reducer. So you're reducing your focal length by about 20% in this case. And then you have a camera right here. And so typically Astro cameras are cooled. So they have this like refrigerator thing on it. And you also, if you want to take photos of nebula, the sensor actually needs to be big. And if the sensor is big, then it's expensive and you need this big body to sort of encase that sensor. So that's what's going on here. And then to control it, most people these days are using these ASI airs or some of their competitors, which are a little bit more open source. So with ASI Air, it's owned by ZWO, and they want you to have your own ZWO focuser, for example, and ZWO cameras. And if you have other too many other different types of cameras, they don't necessarily work. But if you do have your ZWO camera, you can use an ASI Air. But they do work with every mount, and so you add this with a mount, a proper tracking mount, ideally one that's equatorially mounted, and that is how you get the traditional astro photos. But this, I think you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference between a photo taken with this and with the Vespera
Oh,
that's
this guy,
behind you.
yeah.
Like this will massively outperform the dwarf, but I think it's questionable, and it probably would, but like for the layperson, could this outperform the Vespera? It's hard to say. Now the this has twice the aperture, which means it has 4 times the light gathering ability. So there's that. But at the same time, would you really notice if you're just out for an hour? And you know, because this is going to take an hour to set up, that's going to take 15 minutes to set up. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot to consider. Like if you can
It's
do this route, which is
yeah.
this is going to cost about $5,000 to put a whole rig together, or you can do that for 1,700, not have a learning curve, and be getting photos that you might not be able to tell are not taken with something like this.
All right, Jessica, have we gotten some unbelievable footage? I feel like I have gotten some footage of just some crazy things. But when you get into this and you start looking at the night sky, you'll see a bunch of crazy things right off the bat, and everything's a UFO. But then after, I would say just even one night, but more like a month or two of stargazing, you start to realize that was a satellite, that's a meteor, those are birds, that's a plane, and that crazy, that's wild stuff kind of goes away. But I will tell you one thing: there is nothing cooler than a mylar balloon transiting across the moon or the sun. I don't, and especially if it's slow and all deformed like. It's the coolest thing you'll ever see. It looks like a
Wow.
weird spaceship looking twisty thing, just kind of like it's the craziest thing, but it's a mylar balloon. And out actually in LA, Astro Aaron captures a lot of that stuff for some reason. It looks super crazy,
I
but
guess because there's just so much going on in the sky around
yeah,
California.
yeah, that
Yeah.
you get that. But what telescope should you buy? Really comes down to what kind of telescopes are there and what do they do. So that's where there's like the deep sky and the planetary. Um, Planetary options are there's some great ones for a few $100, and there's also these deep sky telescopes for a couple hundred, few $100. So I think this is 400 over here. The
Yeah,
dwarf mini by Dwarf Lab.
yeah,
The dwarf
399. So C
that
Star's at 350 right now.
so C Star 350. That's the S50, right?
30.
S30.
Yeah.
We have the Dwarf 3, yeah, the Dwarf 3 by Dwarf Lab, and that I think is 5 to
Yep.
600. Then you have something like a Vespera 2 for this is all deep sky. This is going to run you around 1700. Then you have something like this with an eyepiece in it showing that screen. That's up around 4500.
Yeah. I think
All
it's Black Friday
yeah.
down into the twos though.
This one,
Possibly. Yeah.
if
Like it's
they
they've
said
dropped it.
20% off is what I saw, but I know there's another sale I think that starts soon or now. There's
Yeah.
another sale happening
So there's also if you save a
with
thousand
Unistellar.
dollars if you leave the eyepiece off.
And then traditional telescopes or planetary or even planetary telescopes. I should just say planetary telescopes. I haven't seen a smart telescope do a great job at planetary yet. Um, it's all been with traditional telescopes. I guess
Yeah. So
that's
we
a
don't neither of us I don't think have tried the Origin though. Celestron.
oh yeah, I haven't tried that one yet.
So I think the issue there
Hi Adams, how
is
you
that
doing?
I haven't seen great images from it in general, and it just be could be because I haven't seen enough of them, and they haven't sent it to me. So like they sent it to one of my friends who was not an astronomer to test out, and I'm like, why would you send it to a non-astronomer? And you know everything you took with it was impressive. So to him, it was impressive to him. But then I saw the images, I'm like, okay. But so far, you know, I haven't seen it in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing.
That just closed itself. That was great.
That's
I was
awesome.
turning them on, and then now like the dwarf lab just turned off, and I heard this noise behind me.
They have a mind of their own. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot
So
of experience on telescopes comes down to just that, though. Like John Reed here with Learn to Stargaze, he has a lot more experience on a variety of different telescopes than I personally do. I have a ton of experience on planetary and visual astronomy. Basically, I go out, I'm not taking pictures. I'm just looking at the night sky with just my Dobsonian or the 8SC by Celestron or or my refractor, and I'm just sitting there observing. And for me, my favorite way to observe is sitting in a chair on the side of a Newtonian or Dobsonian and just kind of like cruising around the night sky. That for me is how I learned the night sky. It's what I still enjoy today. I've used a bunch of different telescopes, but it's still my favorite. And I have a telescope guide that you can find on my website or in my profile link tree here on YouTube that I kind of go through with another astronomer, David, on the different types of telescopes. It's more like these are the types of telescopes. But John here with Learn to Stargaze, he has like so many videos and stuff about specific telescopes and what you can get out of them and different price ranges of telescopes. So, a value of resources. And if you are looking for a telescope, the answer is somewhere in here.
Yeah, and it's also like, how are you finding things in the night sky? How are you using it to find the cool stuff in the first place? And so you have the tracking scopes, the go-to scopes, the push-to scopes. You have all those things as well to consider. And so there's one that I like that we haven't talked about yet, and I don't think I have an example here with the system, but it's Star Sense. And I
Oh,
think a
yeah.
lot of people don't know what that is. And so I actually took the system, which is a dock for your phone, and I put it on a Dobsonian. And so I have a video on that. So the
That's
system,
cool.
what it does, you clip your phone in, and it uses your phone's camera to just always look at the sky. It's got a little mirror in it. And so your camera is always looking at the sky. And what it's doing is it's taking pictures that you don't see. You don't need to see them. But what it's doing is it knows where all the stars are. And so it locks your telescope into position. So your phone moves along with the telescope like
That's
this.
cool.
And it always knows. And then what you do is on your phone screen, it's got a map, and you click on the deep sky object that you want to see, and it can be the most obscure thing, and it will show you where to push your telescope to get you right on target.
That's cool.
And so no
That's
matter
really
what it
cool.
is, if you wanted to do the Messier list, which is that was
Uh, Phone holder.
like
Sorry, real quick question. Phone holder for your telescope. 100% first choice is called the Tridaptor. It is above the Celestron XYZ for one specific reason. It is more compact and flat and fits on more telescopes. The XYZ is a big plastic gumbled geared piece of, look at that thing. Look
yeah,
how big and bulky and weird it is. It doesn't fit on most telescopes. Look at the other side that the telescope would be on, like the eyepiece side. Look at all that stuff. There's like 2 inches or more of just pieces and parts all flailing around. But the
yeah.
Tridaptor is a nice metal one, and I've broken, I think, 3 of those at this point, and I've only broken one Tridaptor now,
Yeah,
and
they
that
tend to
took 2
break
years to
this
break.
the springy thing here.
Yeah, and in the winter when
So
it's like 0 degrees and you're out stargazing like me, the
that
plastic just
said,
snaps in half. The
the
plastic
reason
snaps
it
in half.
probably doesn't fit for a lot of people is that their eyepieces are too small. Like, so what you really need is a long eyepiece. So this is the most popular one. The
Yeah,
try you do you have a triadapter there you can show?
I
But
have a
with
Tridaptor. I do, if you give me a second.
okay, so I'll just demo this one. So with this one, what you want to do is you take your eyepiece and you put it in. And what now the most important part is you have to look at it here and you have to make sure it's perfectly flush. Otherwise, the light will hit your phone at an angle. And so you want to make sure that that's perfectly flush like that. And then you reach in here and there's a knob that you screw in like this again. So this is and that's that's how you connect an eyepiece. Wow, we must have had a giant eyepiece on here before. Yeah. And so you can see here, even with that big eyepiece, this is lower than where it goes into the telescope, right? And so you need to have something sticking out of the telescope like a diagonal. If I just grab this 130 millimeter Newtonian off the floor, um, it's possible that it can hit somewhere. But like in this case, there's lots of room like that. But it's possible that on some scopes or with any eyepiece that's smaller, this gear will intersect something on the telescope itself right here. So you really need that big eyepiece so that it clears it. Contrast to what Nate's got there.
Here's the Tridaptor on an eyepiece. And see how thin that is? You do have this piece that sticks out, but next to an XYZ, I don't know how to,
Yeah.
we're clamped on. There's your difference. You
Oop.
know, it's just and your phone just tightens in here. It has this three axis. And then what I like for visually is the zoom eyepieces. I love these.
I recognize that.
No, you gave me another one.
Oh.
So you gave me my third of these. So I'm gonna
Amazing.
give that back to I'm gonna ship it back to you. because now I have three of them.
Yeah, I just bought the small
And
SB Bone one.
this is my third XYZ that I haven't broke yet. I broke the other two.
Ugh.
So this one's unbroken. And then I finally broke my first try after 2 years. And what finally failed on it was right here, this screw that tightens on your phone stripped out over here. It just stripped out. But that took 2 years of, you guys seen my videos. I do this every day. 2 years of using it daily. And it
Yeah,
finally stripped. So that was a pretty good life for it. So I just got this new one here.
yeah,
And
but
I like this one because it's metal. It's metal.
Zoom eyepieces are great. So
For visual, and to do what I do with my phone is a little bit different than normal. What I'm
yeah,
doing is I'm doing content for you guys in a specific way. I wouldn't use everything I'm using to do normal astro. I take off my whole contraption and I have 2-inch eyepieces and stuff I put on when I'm just observing.
yeah,
Completely different setup than what I'm using to make the videos on my phone. And I usually get new eyepieces and Barlow's for every time I upgrade my phone, just for content online. It's very specific for the content compared to visual observing. And then I have telescope cameras and stuff to do astrophotography or smart telescopes.
yeah. But the advantage of a zoom eyepiece for visual astronomy, again, they're not designed for to put cameras in, but the advantage is exit pupil.
Yes.
So it's not making things bigger that makes things look better. So with a telescope, for a given telescope, your resolution is fixed. Okay. So it's all you're doing. Things don't like a book, the story doesn't get better the closer you put the book to your face. Things in space don't necessarily look better because they're closer. But the beam, as you change magnifications, the width of the beam of light coming out of the telescope changes. So as you zoom in, that beam of light gets narrower or bigger.
Yeah.
And you tend to, for different targets, you might want a narrow beam, like for planets, or for nebula to maximize the contrast, you might want a wide beam of light coming out of your telescope. So you may not know what the optimal diameter of the light coming out is. With a zoom eyepiece, especially one that's parfocal, that means that you don't need to change focus as you change magnification. You can zoom in on, let's say, a nebula and stop when the contrast is the highest.
Yeah.
And so but when you get that perfect combination of light beam coming out of the telescope and your eyes dark adaptive pupil, it is magical. I saw AstroNate experience this because I brought
Oh yeah.
an 82 millimeter telescope with me to California
That was
and
in Santa Barbara, right?
in Santa Barbara, and
Yeah.
I put in a 20 millimeter eyepiece. And anyway, we pointed it out like the Pleiades are, and then I think the Owl Cluster, NGC 457, and the view was just absolutely immersive and bright. And I did the Andromeda Galaxy and saw the details in the spiral arms, and then even details in Galaxy M33. And this is in Santa Barbara, California. And why it worked so well is just for whatever reason, the level at which our eyes were dark adapted and the exit pupil coming out of that telescope was just perfectly matched and gave us just these stellar views. And Nate leaned over and just goes, "Whoa, what? No way!" And I
Yeah.
was like, "I wish I had that on camera." And it was just that perfect combination of eyepiece and telescope.
I think
And
I
yeah,
think I was doing a live on TikTok during it or something. I might have a replay of me freaking out.
maybe once. I know I remember the first time, and I was like, there are no cameras rolling. And I was like, you got to save
It's
those reactions for the camera.
when you're dealing with a handful of different telescopes and stuff, it's also hard. I found that to also be doing a live stream and filming things, and it gets pretty overwhelming without like a full blown crew or something. But the the biggest thing is if you're interested in astronomy, the answer is there. The answer to your question, what telescope should you get, is there. But if some, this is all on me, but if someone is telling you this is the telescope you need if you want a beginner telescope, they're wrong. They should be asking you, what do you want to do with it before recommending you a telescope? Okay. Because even at a beginner level, there's going to be big differences between what they can do. And if you're going to invest any money, rule number one, avoid big box stores. This is all on me, by the way. John can have his own take, but
I mean, I don't know what a big box store is.
when I say big box store, I mean Target, Walmart, where they have these huge galaxies and nebulas pictures on these boxes, and it's a super deal for $100. And it says you can see the night sky, and you get the telescope. It's all plastic. The optics are plastic. It falls apart, doesn't even go together right. Basically broken out of the box, and you spend $100 on it, and there's no way this in this
Yeah.
world you're ever going to see a galaxy or nebula like is on the box with
So
it, and it comes.
90% of the time, that's an Astromaster or a Power Seeker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so if you avoid that, go with companies that make telescopes, like in general. There are some good quality cheap telescopes to start with. John has done videos on it. um, but you have to like put in a little effort. If somebody's going to be just telling you what to get, I wouldn't trust them. you know you want to have a little more of a conversation where this is what I want to do, and that's where like my guide will help you determine what telescopes and what they do. And then this is what I want to do. Here's my budget. Okay, now here you filtered it down to these selected items instead of just there is no one size fits all. And
Yeah.
I feel like somebody new into astronomy is getting fed a lot of one size fits all for everything, and they get it. It's not good quality. It destroys the experience for them. It leaves them upset, and they might set down the telescope and never pick up the hobby again. They're hobby killers, as I call them. So, like, that's why it's very important to just ask questions. And that's why, like, this live, and probably we'll be doing more lives throughout the holiday season and in the future, but learn to stargaze. He's got books, he's got tons of videos and reviews and different telescopes and different budgets and what they do and if you like them. And
Yeah.
all the information is here. You just need to ask more than just what telescope should I get, you know?
And it's interesting though, because just because I have a video on it doesn't mean I recommend it. And so in one
Yeah.
case, I did a 3-part series on the Power Seeker
Same with mountain bikes.
because because so many people had bought the Power Seeker. This is the 70 EQ that I'm like, all right, you already have it. I'm going to show you how to use it. And it took about 3 hours of video to show you like it's such now I think I spelled it out. Like this is not a telescope that you intentionally buy. If
Yeah.
you bought it by accident, here's how you use it. And so I have a couple videos like that too, but for the
That's
most part,
cool. But that's really
yeah.
good because you have that, oops, I bought this telescope. Now what do I do with it?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Exactly. And so that was had to be a 3-part series because you had to have a part on how to repair it and how to get it ready to actually function. And
Yeah.
then how to use an equatorially mounted telescope was its own video. Um,
Another
but
thing is learning the night sky has never been easier. You can get free apps on the phone you're already on and just point it up at the sky at night and start learning. And
yeah,
then binoculars are a great start. And telescopes don't have to be intimidating. They don't have to be. I know they can come off that way when you see the guys with the big astrophotography rigs and all the wires, and it looks like a team of scientists put this thing together. It really comes down to just as simple as binoculars. You're looking through some glass at some stars or whatever.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
simple as that.
A
And
telescope
it's
should
a
be
wonderful
far
hobby.
easier to use than binoculars.
Yeah.
That's my rule.
Yeah.
If your telescope is more complicated than binoculars, because binoculars is a 5-step process to
Oh
get
yeah,
up
you
close.
got the this, and the focus. Yeah.
Yeah, so binoculars are a 5-step process. A telescope is a 3-step process. So typically a little easier. And the way to test if the telescope is good or not, or it's easy, is we've got Saturn up in the sky right now. Getting Saturn in view should be absolutely trivial. And if that is a challenge with the telescope, like if you know that that's Saturn, use your app and you see that Saturn. If getting the telescope pointed at Saturn and getting it in focus is a challenge, then it's probably not a good telescope. So that's kind of an interesting test. But like a
That's a
telescope,
really
like
good idea. Yeah.
um,
I think Saturn was my first light with my Dobsonian, and I still remember the feeling. It was shivers over my whole body when I saw it through
yeah.
dawn.
Oop, this one's all cattywampus here. We were messing with this one during my live, but yeah. So like this is like your basic telescope. Yeah, a little too close to the camera here. This is one that you might find for $200. But this is one that you could probably find for $200 and use for the rest of your life in theory. And so this particular one is the SV48P, and I just put it on a base. This is actually the mount from the one of the $100 scopes at Costco, and I just repurposed it. But you know, so basically, a telescope should move up and down and left and right. A beginner telescope. And I don't like finder scopes. I like them to come with these as I kick over my phone tripod. These red dot finders I really enjoy, where it just puts a dot on the sky. But step
Hmm.
one when using a telescope, and you do this during the day, you just make sure that this and this are pointed at exactly the same spot.
Yep.
And so what you do there is you put an eyepiece in. This doesn't have an eyepiece, but you put an eyepiece in, and then you point the telescope at something like a cell phone tower or a chimney. And then what you do is you take your finder and you turn this knob, which moves it left and right, and this knob, which moves it up and down. And you just point the dot at that cell phone tower so that this and the telescope are pointed out exactly the same spot. And so
Hey,
after that's done, when you go to point at Saturn, you put the little dot on Saturn, and then all you need to do is then you look in here and twist the focusing knob until you see the rings. So that's really all there is to it.
John,
Like,
while you have that up and out, for anybody watching this video later on, a lot of questions we get is how do I put together my telescope? Like simple, just he's got one right there. I think he just needs an eyepiece. He
yeah,
can show you basically how the main components of a regular basic telescope and how to put it together probably within seconds almost or a
yeah.
minute,
So they
you
pretty
know.
much they don't come with. So basically, a telescope has to come with a mount. If the telescope is fixed directly to the tripod, like pretend this isn't on here, then that's a spotting scope. It's not designed for space, and it's not going to be any fun. So you need this thing. This technically this rod is the mount in this case, and it basically comes assembled in most cases like this, and then you have what's called a dovetail here, and your mount here, and so the telescope just slides in into your dovetail, and this is for balancing. Oops, as I try to balance it with one hand here. And so now just what you want to do is make sure that it's balanced in such a way that it's not going to flop forward, it's not going to flop backward, and it stays precisely where you put it when you let go. There should be zero slop whatsoever. So slop is like it drops a little bit. So there should be none of that. And typically, most telescopes these days on these Altazimuth mounts, unless you're getting a Dobsonian, but you have slow motion controls, and so you just screw these in, and they can go on either side. Because sometimes if it's over here, it'll hit your focusing assembly, and you don't want that. You just screw it in on either side. Oops, I'm unscrewing it, but you get the idea.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
we're going through setting up the just a basic telescope. Should you get a Dobsonian or Newtonian scope? Well, actually, they're the same. Dobsonian is just the mount on it,
Yep.
but the telescope itself, the tube, is they're similar. You got the eyepiece on the side up near the opening. But continue on, John. Sorry.
Yep. And so again, this is a refractor, which just means it uses a lens to refract light instead of reflect it. You have your finder. If you don't have one of these, and if it doesn't work, if you don't see the little red light, let me see if I can show it. It's probably a little dim in here. If you don't see the little red light or bright light,
I
where is
see a
it?
little red there
There it
somewhere.
is.
Yeah, I see the
It
little
should be
dot.
it should be a point. If you don't see that, it's going to be no fun. So They take 2032 batteries, so just make sure you have that and make sure that it works. Otherwise, it's going to be near impossible to find anything in the sky. And so you screw that in. It's also impossible to use a telescope without an eyepiece.
Yeah.
So you need to put an eyepiece in there.
And the piece that's in there right now, you'll see a lot of, they're called diagonals. You'll see that piece also come with a lot of these telescopes, and that goes in before the eyepiece. I have
Yeah,
seen a lot of people go and try to put their eyepiece right into the telescope without the diagonal as if it's an optional thing. And they have a really bad experience. And the truth is, you just needed to put the diagonal in first. A
yeah.
very simple mistake.
And if this diagonal is not 90 degrees, if it's 45, that's a red flag that the telescope is not designed for looking at space, and it probably won't be a lot of fun.
I seem to remember looking at a 101-inch telescope that discovered the universe has a light source scope with a 45.
Yeah. Ironically, the 100-inch
But that was
Mount
just
Wilson.
like its spotting scope or something, or was that actually hooked? I don't know what that. It was like another piece to it. I don't. Right?
At Mount Wilson? I think
Yeah.
that was the imaging train brought it. I think it brought it to a focus there. Um, but yeah, so if it doesn't, so this is a 90-degree diagonal. This forms a 90-degree angle, right? If this was at coming off like this and the eyepiece went in at this angle, that's a sign that, hey, this telescope is for looking at your neighbors. It's not for looking at space. Um, Unfortunately, I think Nate has the adapter from this one.
Somebody said that right in chat right when you said it about the neighbors.
Yeah, I've been saying that a lot recently. Yeah. So again, it should look like this if it's for looking at space. If it goes in like this, it's for looking at your neighbors. So you need it to be like this so that you can look at things that are high in the sky. If because most of the time objects are going to look better when they're at least 60 degrees up. So it's like that. So things are if your eyepiece is cattywampus down like this, then it's going to get harder. You're going to be like upside down trying to look into it.
Yeah.
So
Another reason I love Dobsonians and Newtonians. It's because the eyepiece is on the side.
yeah, you don't have those unless you're in the movies. Have you ever noticed in the movies all the Newtonians are like always upside down? They're like
There's a
this.
Newtonian, guys. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, they always have it. Yeah.
Yeah, so a Newtonian is where the mirror collects light. You have a mirror at the back. It needs to be collimated with these 6 screws. And then you also have these 3 screws here that are controlled with an Allen wrench. And so when you buy this, especially this Celestron one, it does not come collimated.
Oh,
They
yeah.
just don't do it in the factory. And so you need to loosen these smaller screws. Those are the mirror locks, so they all need to be loosened. And then these need to be adjusted until that mirror is perfectly aligned. So that's called collimation. And the way you do that is typically, I don't have a cap here. You look into the hole without an eyepiece, and I can see that this one is way off. And you can see by just looking in if everything is centered or not, right? You can see this one is off because I've been doing a demonstration. Like you should,
Oh,
that mirror assembly at the back that you can see should be in the center right
oh, that's
there.
not me. I thought it was me in there.
Or
I
it's
thought,
you are in there a little bit. Well, there you go.
am I? Am I
I
in
can
there?
I can make you, and there you go.
Oh, there. I see me. I see me. Hi. I see me.
Yeah. So basically, step one is you adjust this until the image of the back mirror is centered, and then you adjust this until the image of this stuff at the front of your telescope is centered. But it's easier to do with a laser. So you can go buy a collimation laser, you put the laser in
Lasers.
here, and that's how you do it.
Ugh.
And well, I hope this was
Okay.
helpful to a lot of people. It
I
seems
think
like
it will be. And this is going to remain posted, I believe, on both our channels. So if you're watching this later on, please comment on the video. And if you're in here now, give a like on it. But comment on the video your questions, telescopes you're looking at, or anything like that. Both John and myself, we will, go through the comments and try to see what your needs are, and maybe help give you a recommendation.
yeah. Um, And then should I plug my books for just a second while we're here before we
Yeah,
go?
let's do it.
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, so I've been doing this professionally for about 15 years now. Uh 8 to 10 years ago, my wife said, "You need to write a stargazing book for kids." And so we wrote this book, 50 Things to See with a Telescope for Kids. And it is now currently the number one best selling astronomy book on Amazon.
And
So,
it's
I-
my most recommended top choice book for beginner astronomers, and it still would be even if you were not my friend.
amazing. And the reason it's so popular is you just open it, it's organized by season. And there's basically 10 targets per season. So you open it up to whatever season you're in. And it's trivially easy to find things with your telescope. And it's all the easiest targets for that particular season. And you learn the constellations and learn the night sky. And so if you don't know what to point your telescope at, um, guidebooks are the way to go. So you have your app, but you actually, if you're using a telescope, you shouldn't use the telescope and the app at the same time because you'll ruin your night vision. And so it's much better if you're trying to like expand your stargazing repertoire to get a book like 110 Things to See with a Telescope and a red flashlight. So this is the book we wrote, me and Chris Vaughn from space.com. We wrote this for the enthusiast. And this has, again, your one target per page. And the other thing we did with this, which is really cool, is again your one target per page. So there's the galaxy and Coma Berenices, but you also have your observing log. And after you observe 70 targets, you can collect all your observing logs and send them to either the Astronomical League in the States, or if you're anywhere else in the world, you send them to the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, and they will send you a certificate and pin in the mail. And so we worked with them, both the Astronomical League in the United States and the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, to make sure that yes, it's cool to use this book to get those certificates, which is kind of cool. So that
In
was
2026, it's my goal to get that certification.
Yep. The challenge, I think, is as you take notes, that's what they do. They read your notes, and they want to make sure that you've written down the sky conditions and you've sketched some details about what you see. So that's what they're looking for, which I think is really interesting.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. And
So
then if
thank
you're
you
in
very
a
much to team up with John Reed. The books can be found on Amazon as well as a lot of links for them on your website, learntostargaze.com, right?
learntostargaze.com has the links. Yeah, Amazon, but you can also order them at any bookstore. So
Okay.
they're for most of the books are professionally published, or they're on Ingram, and in which the bookstores can get them, or they might even have them in stock. So they're
And
quite
make
popular.
sure it is authored by John Reed. There's AI knockoffs out there ripping off his books. So
Yeah,
make sure it's John Reed is the author on the book.
if it's things to see with a telescope, targets to see with a telescope, and it's not my name on the book, it's probably a knockoff. Yeah, these were written before AI, so there you have it.
Anybody else have any questions before we get going? That was fun, John. Thank you.
This was great, Nate. It's always great to hang out.
Oh yeah. And I
So much
think
fun.
if possible, later tonight on TikTok, I'm trying to put together a panel to do with the sun today, because right now we have one of the largest chains of sunspot regions we've ever seen. I'm an interview on the sun, along with, remember a few weeks ago we had the big geomagnetic storm. That active sunspot region is coming back into view as well. And it just released an X class flare. Like the sun is going to look insane this week. Will we have solar storms, big geomagnetic storms, big auroras? I don't know, but hopefully a panel with Mr. John Reed here, solar astrophysicist Dr. Ryan French, and maybe orbital physics mechanics genius physics PhD Jorge. So, and then me.
Amazing.
That would be on
Amazing.
TikTok this evening. I'm trying to put it together, no guarantee yet, but I think that would be interesting because I know a lot of people are really excited about the sun while we're in Solar Max, and I don't hit it every day. It's more like every couple weeks we touch base with the sun. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, the sun is being amazing right now. Actually, let me show you if I can green screen. This
Whoa.
was just taken in hydrogen alpha of the region. Look at that.
Oop,
Oh, wait.
that's incredible. I think my kids are coming up to tell me to
All
come
right.
to dinner.
All right, guys. All right, John, we'll
All
see
right, I
you.
got to sign off. SunshineNate, it's been amazing. I'll try to be around tonight. And
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll see you
bye.
soon. Bye.
See you later.
All right. John Reed, learntostargaze.com. 50 things to see, 50 things in the night sky, 50 things to see with a telescope, by John Reed. That's for kids and for parents. That book is my top choice book for the holiday season for stargazers. It's a perfect way to get out and enjoy the night sky, and make sure it's authored by John Reed. But yeah, as far as telescopes go and what telescope you should get, please comment on this video. And this is a Dwarf Lab Dwarf Mini. This is brand new. I think it still might be pre-order, around 400 bucks, I think. I don't know what their sale is on it. This is around 5 to 600. This is the Dwarf Lab Dwarf 3 smart telescopes. These are both good for some deep sky images and really portable. Here is a this is the Unistellar Odyssey Pro. This is good for that deep sky imaging with an eyepiece to see the live stacking. So this one runs around 4,500, but I think they're having a sale. You can get this a lot less right now. This one does your deep sky imaging, plus gives you that experience of looking at deep sky objects with through an eyepiece. And then premium optics on a smart telescope here with the Vaonis Vespera 2. And now this one doesn't do the processing for you, but it does collect incredible data that you could throw into PixInsight and stuff like that and get some incredible images. So I think this one's like 1,700. So a variety of price ranges there from a few $100 to a few $1,000. But that's the smart telescopes I shared. And then John showed you, some of those basic telescopes that are like $100 that are usable, that you can use, that you can have a lot of fun with. So if you are on a budget, check out Learn to Stargaze here on YouTube. He has a ton of videos on those telescopes. Just search through them. He's got videos on beginner telescopes after beginner telescopes after beginner telescopes. So leave a comment on this video, guys, and John and I will be through to look at them. Can you use your Celestron solar binoculars to view the sun? I haven't used the Celestron solar binoculars, but if they have a proper solar filter on them installed the proper way, yeah, you can. But I haven't used them, so I can't um, tell you. But it sounds like you could if they're made for it. Going under 1,000, Mike. Yeah, I'm usually under 1,000 when I'm looking for a telescope. I'm like, I don't want to go crazy, And for my beginner telescopes, I went out and got like a little travel scope, which was a mistake. It was like $70, and I was like, I just want a telescope that I could put up to my phone, just to magnify my phone lens. And it didn't really do anything. I mean, I could kind of see the moon as a weird smudge. Um, and then I got into a Dobson. I was like, you know what? I'll spend a few $100s. So I spent $650 with Orion before they went out of business, and got an 8-inch Dobsonian, the Orion XT8. And to this day, that's still my favorite telescope. I use it all the time. I just have it parked in the garage and I take it in the backyard. It just, whenever we have a clear night, you can find me there. And that's where I share you guys a lot of the stuff from. But there's a variety of different telescopes that you can pick from now, and I'm becoming a bigger fan of smart telescopes. I think that is going to be a huge thing with astrophotography moving forward. Honestly, I think they're just going to continue to get better and better, and so they've really carved out their thing. And now with Dwarf Lab, they've kind of carved out like a compact portable smart telescope, and that would be number one right there. I think it's the world's smallest smart telescope right now, the Dwarf Mini. But you got different kinds, like these are the Dwarf Labs are very portable. You've got some premium optics here. You've got an eyepiece experience that's amazing. And then, yeah, I'm becoming a fan of the smart telescopes. Are there good digital telescopes with AI capabilities? The AI buzzword gets a little tricky because I don't like to just blanket things with that because AI doesn't really even exist. We just use it as a buzzword to learn computer model systems and stuff. Um, I would say there's a lot of that going on. Not a lot of that going on in the smart telescopes, but they are starting to dabble with it. I've seen a little bit, like AI, call it AI powered, but like, what does that mean? Like, how much AI is going into this and what is it doing? But I do know some smartphones and some smart telescopes have some cap- something going on with it, but I'd have to look into that a little further to better answer. So put a comment below about the AI stuff. I'll go research it and answer you guys in the comments. Not on the live, but in the actual posted video after this. Are the better telescope manufacturing companies Asian, European, or American? The better telescope manufacturing companies are the ones that use better materials. And that can be Asian, European, or American. It could be anybody. It's whoever uses the better materials, the better optics, the better components, and spends more time into it will manufacture a better unit. I don't think it has to do with the country at all. I've seen, I mean, it doesn't matter. you know, it's apples and oranges there. All right, guys. I hope you have a good night because I think these two are French. I think these two are Chinese. I think ZWO is Chinese. And then you got Celestron, Skywatcher USA. A lot of great stuff. I'm sad because Orion and Meade are out of business because Orion is my first telescope. And then, like, I got my first telescope and then they went out of business. It's like, man, it's still my favorite telescope, though. Big Dobsonian. And I'm very biased towards Dobsonians because I think you can get like I bought it brand new for 650, but you can pick them up used a lot of times from astronomy clubs and stuff nearby for just a couple $100, 200-300 bucks. Get a nice mint condition Dobson 8-inch Dobsonian, you know. And right now, I am looking for 2026 to be sharing live views with you guys through a 16-inch Dobsonian. You know, so have a good day, guys. Thank you. We'll see you next time.